So I did some traveling recently outside the US, and whenever I leave the country, I always bring a dedicated backup drive for my iPhone because I'm going to take a ton of photos and videos, and here in the States, I just rely on iCloud backups. But when I'm roaming on another carrier in another country, I don't want a massive phone bill at the end of the month, so I make sure that this doesn't back up to iCloud, and I just back up everything to an external drive. Now, back when the iPhones used Lightning, this was a particularly painful process because that is a USB 2-speed connector, and I take a lot of photos and videos. So when they switched over to using the USB-C standard, and particularly USB 3 speeds on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, I was extremely happy until I ran into an issue with what was my go-to external drive. About 5 years ago, I made a video talking about the Samsung T5 SSDs, and this video isn't about these, but I thought that these were fantastic. But my opinion on these has kind of soured over the years because these are really nice aluminum external drives with NAND chips inside on a little motherboard. This one even has a MagSafe ring on it. I put it on here to connect it to my phone so I can record videos with it. But they've all started to die, and because they're just fully enclosed, you can't replace what's inside. They're just dead. So because of that, I've decided that the better option for my kind of work is an SSD enclosure. And I've used quite a few different ones, but the ones that I tend to lean towards the most are NVMe enclosures, just for the simplicity and the speed. Now, because those Samsung T5 drives started to fail on me, obviously I wanted to find something to take with me when I did my traveling, and perfectly timed, a company called Zike reached out to me and asked if I wanted to try out their USB 4 NVMe enclosure that they claimed was the fastest enclosure on the market. And, well, let's talk about that. But before we get into that, I do want to clarify two things. First off is that yes, Zike did send me this product, but they had no input on the review. The drive results, all the testing I did was done with drives that I purchased and put into the enclosure, and they're seeing this video right around the same time that you are, assuming you're subscribed and you hit the notification bell to see the video as soon as it went live. Also, just for the sake of transparency, this is a $200 enclosure, and Zike did provide me with a promotional link and a promotional code to save you all 20%. So if you do decide after you get all the information from this video that you would be interested in buying one of these, that is linked down below. The second thing I want to point out is that this normally has a clear plastic shell on it. You can see it in this little video here, and mine doesn't have that, not because Zike didn't send it to me, but because I thought that it was packing protection that I had to remove, because I thought that it was just a bare piece of aluminum, but in reality, it's actually supposed to stay on there because it keeps your hands away from what is not particularly a hot surface, but it does get warm, and it's also meant to protect the bare aluminum. So if you do decide to buy one of these, yeah, the clear plastic shell is actually meant to stay on there. Don't take it off like I did. Yeah, so anyway, with those two things aside, one of which was just caused by my own stupidity, let's dive into my experience with this USB 4 enclosure by Zike. So the first thing I noticed with this is that it is a very wide SSD enclosure. I'm used to something like this, much more narrow, but this is also a USB 4 enclosure versus USB 3, which means the motherboard is a little bigger to accommodate for the circuitry required for Thunderbolt compatibility, both 3 and 4, and of course the higher speeds of USB 4. But there's a bit of extra width that's used for something that is very practical and super convenient for travel, which is this tiny or average, or some might say too big, USB 4 cable. And it just tucks right in the side there, and as long as you have it with you, you can always plug this in to any USB device. It's super convenient. Every night I would actually just plug this in to my phone using the tiny cable here and just back up all my photos and videos. It was super convenient. But in the case that you want to plug this into something like a Mac Studio where you need a bit of a longer cable so it's not just hanging off of the device, it does come with this 50 centimeter cable, which is that much in Freedom units. It's got a little zip tie here so you can manage the cable and throw it in your bag, and it is a very nice little braided USB 4 cable. So you do have two options. One is obviously for travel, and the other is maybe for travel, but also more likely for desktop or laptop use. So it's always good to have options. And speaking of options, you actually have quite a few options when it comes to the SSDs that you can toollessly load into this thing. So you can go from the more common 2280 standard of SSDs all the way down to the more Steam Deck or ROG Ally friendly 2230 size. And I gotta say, I tried that and it looks hilarious because there's so much space with just a little SSD in there, but you know what? It works. And yeah, like I said, this thing is completely toolless, so you just have these little ball bearings that hold it in at the bottom, and it just leverages right up at the top, and that's it. There's a thermal pad on this side, and it does a really good job of conducting the heat away from the SSD, so if you're worried about the SSD getting warm, like, yeah, it's obviously gonna get warm, but it's not gonna overheat, because this thermal pad, as you can see by the hard mark that my SSD left on it, it's making good contact. And having that thermal pad on the inside making good contact with the SSD is going to be important because, as I've said multiple times, this is a USB 4 capable enclosure. So USB 4, for anybody who doesn't know, is theoretically capable of 40 gigabits per second, or about 5,000 megabytes per second. Now, that isn't actually what you're going to be getting in terms of speed, but you're actually getting more than any other enclosure that I've ever seen, because this is using PCIe Gen 4x4 for the M.2 connection. Now, I tested out 2 different SSDs, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute, but both of the results that I had came short of what Zike claimed as the maximum speed for this enclosure. With Zike's claims, you were getting about 3,811 megabytes per second on read and about 3,199 megabytes per second on write. For me, it was about 3,100 on read and about 3,000 on write. So less than what they claimed, but still incredibly impressive. And those results, which were my best ones, came from the Samsung 990 Pro. I also got about 2,300, 2,400 out of a Crucial P3 drive, which is DRAM-less, uses HBM, which is more favorable for being in a PC, not in an external enclosure, but those results still were pretty good. And during my testing, I also discovered something that I have never had to think about when it comes to enclosures until using this one. One of the SSD enclosures that I've used for quite a while is this guy, which runs at USB 3.1 speeds. But those speeds are actually not fast enough to fully saturate the amount of data that can be fed to either of the SSDs that I tested in this video. But when you're using USB 4 like this, you could actually, if you're putting a ton of data onto these drives, fill the DRAM cache in this, or overload the NAND chips and the maximum speed that they can handle, and you'll actually see your drive throttling. Now, fortunately, with drives like the Samsung 990 EVO that have DRAM caches, I basically couldn't get this thing to slow down until the drive was almost full. And on the Crucial P3, that doesn't have a DRAM cache, it uses HBM, which when it's in a computer will actually use system memory as a cache and just slowly dump that into the NAND storage. But even that drive, it took almost 200 gigabytes before it throttled. And when it did throttle, it was hard. It really throttled. But unless you're going to be moving those massive files around at those kind of speeds regularly, I really don't think that's going to be a problem. And I mean, hell, 2 of the fastest results on Zike's website are from a Lexar NM790 4TB, which is an HBM DRAM-less drive, and a Western Digital Black SN850X 2TB, which is a DRAM drive. So unless you're moving that much data constantly from Thunderbolt to Thunderbolt, it really doesn't matter. And like, I even made a video a while back talking about how realistically you're not going to be using a ton of speed out of SSDs on a regular basis. Like, I showed the results of what I was actually getting speed-wise when I was editing 4K footage with high bit rates, and the number was surprisingly low, like a fraction of what you would be getting out of the maximum speed of this thing. So in reality, even the fastest speed on this thing is only ever going to be utilized for data transfer. And that's about it. But I mean, look, it is always nice to look at the big number and say, holy crap, this thing performs really well. And holy crap, this thing performs really, really well. But for me, I'm kind of torn. Not on whether or not this is a good SSD enclosure, because it is a fantastic SSD enclosure. What I'm torn about is how I'm using it, because I'm using it as a portable SSD, and my iPad could, in theory, take full advantage of this USB 4 connection because the iPad has USB 4, but my iPhone and backing videos and photos up with it, that's not really fully leveraging this. While it does have the built-in cable that tells me, yes, this is a portable SSD, I'm much more tempted to plug it in to the Thunderbolt port on the back of my Mac Studio and use this as the enclosure for my main editing drive, because it's just that fast. And while I might not notice it in day-to-day tasks with my normal footage, when I do get commissioned footage that occasionally comes down that is Red RAW or Blackmagic RAW, this does give me that little bit of extra time saved in my edit. And as anybody who's worked professionally with video editing, music, machinery, anything that is time-based, any second or minute or whatever amount of time can be saved can be a lot of money in your pocket. And unless Zike wants to send me another one, I'm thinking I might just forego the portability and plug it in and have it be stationary, which is a big deal because I don't change out mission critical stuff in my workflow very often. So for me to say that I'm thinking about plugging this into my mission critical workstation as a mainstay editing drive is very high praise. In fact, I really can't think of much higher technical praise. So, I mean, take that as you will. So to wrap things up here, Zike claims that this is the world's first and fastest USB 4 NVMe enclosure. I don't go on marketing, I never have, I never will, but in my personal experience, I have one other Thunderbolt 4 USB 4 compatible NVMe enclosure, and I don't know which one came first, I really don't, and frankly, I don't care. It's not about who's first, it's about who's better. And when it comes to the speed, this is definitely better than the other one that I used. And overall, I wouldn't just say the speed makes it better, the portability, the build quality, the thermal pad, all of these things combine to make this my new favorite NVMe USB 4, all the other names and numbers you want to tag onto it, enclosure. And because of that, it's probably gonna live as a permanent mainstay in my workstation, despite it being portable. Watch a few months from now, I'll want to use it as a portable drive again and I'll just swap everything back. Either way, that's been it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Huge thanks to Zike for sending me this. It's fantastic, and if you all want to buy one, like I said, there's a link down in the description. Hopefully you all waited until the end of the video and made your decision then, and of course, there's that 20% discount code you can use. So go ahead over to the link if you are interested. While you're on your way down there, maybe leave a like or subscribe if you want to make sure you don't miss other content like this. I've got some other things planned, less promo stuff and more stuff like this, but I do love doing these because it gives me a chance to try out things that I would have otherwise not bought myself. So either way, huge thanks to Zike, huge thanks to you all for watching the video, and I will see you all in the next one. Make sure to be there and have a good one.